So you've seen the headlines, AI is taking over. But as a business owner, do you actually need AI? And if you do, where does it really help instead of just becoming another expensive distraction? Maybe you've tried other tools that overpromised and underdelivered. I know that I for sure have. Or maybe you're just tired of having to learn new jargon, or you're just tired of the hype. I kind of get that way a little bit. Now, if you're running a real company with real people and there's real stakes involved, this video will help you cut through the noise and think about AI the way a leader really needs to, not the way a tech vendor or someone who's just super excited about things wants you to. AI doesn't cause problems because it's weak or because it hallucinates or it's going to take over the world. It fails when leaders misunderstand its impact on judgment. All right, so there was an interesting article that came out a few weeks ago that was examining the impact of AI on doctors who were using it for diagnostic work. Specifically in looking at imagery, diagnostic imagery, they were running it through AI tools to help identify whatever the problem was that they were looking for. The interesting thing about this is they found that doctors who relied exclusively on AI for their diagnostic work lost their ability themselves to accurately and quickly diagnose the patients that they were looking at, whose images they were looking at, within a matter of weeks. The erosion of skill or atrophy of skill, their diagnostic skill, was actually pretty quick and very measurable. And so the first leadership concept that I want to pull from that example and from other similar ones is that thinking must be practiced. It's a perishable skill. You can't allow it to just go. And by thinking, I don't mean just having thoughts run through your head. I mean specifically exercising judgment, critical thinking, idea generation, problem solving, and on and on. Any of this higher level, higher order thinking requires practice to get good at it, to be effective at it. And if you give it to AI to do, you will lose your ability to do it quickly and to do it accurately, especially when it's most needed. And leaders are needed because we think. I mean, that's a big part of what we're doing as leaders, is help identify what is the way we should go when it's not clear. How do you handle this situation or that situation? Should we take or should we avoid this opportunity or that opportunity? These are all difficult decisions oftentimes, and if we have been delegating our capacity to think to a robot, to AI, then we will atrophy our own capacity. Before I go any further, I want to be clear. I am not anti-AI. I use it on a regular basis. Actually, to build the outline for this video, I used AI, and that's a perfect example of what I'm thinking about and what I'm talking about. I wrote an article about how leaders should use AI, and I go into, I think it's 8 or 9 major points, and I was comparing it to major historical advances in technology that changed the world, like learning how to write, for example, or learning the scientific method, how they just changed everything, printing press and so on. And so how we adapted to that and using that as a way to look at how AI might impact us in the future. So that was the basis of the article. So I took that article, I put it into AI, into ChatGPT, and I said, please turn this into a script or an outline for a YouTube video. It did it. And when I first looked it over, it looked great. I mean, it had my content that it was pulling from. It wasn't generating its own content. And at a quick pass, it seemed to all make sense. And I was ready to roll. And then I thought, you know what, I should probably read what I told myself to say before I say it so that it'll make sure that I understand what I'm trying to say. And as I read through it, it didn't make any sense. It was all kind of very smooth, AI polished mush of kind of nonsense. It didn't actually it didn't understand, I'll put it this way, it didn't understand what I was trying to communicate in the article. Now, maybe the article could have been written better. It's possible. But I understood my article. I couldn't really understand what was going on in this outline that AI created. So that inability to recognize, does this make more sense or less sense than the source material, is something that most people can pick up on pretty quickly. It's something that AI struggles with because it's working on a derivative basis. It's not trying to really, we call it generative and creating, but really it's derivative. It takes something that was created somewhere else and just kind of comes up with a version of that to the best that it understands what you're trying to accomplish. You have to be careful how much you outsource that. And you have to be careful to not let it do that thinking for you. I thought maybe because I'd already written the article, I could shortcut a step in the process of creating an outline for these videos. What I realized is it was faster for me just to sit down and create the outline that I'm giving you right now than it was to even go through the AI process. And so AI has value. I do use it, but it's not a reliable thinking tool. And I can tell you that the AI thinking around how leaders should use AI, it's not worth spending your time. Not useful. This is so much better than that. All right, here's the second thing. Learning must be designed. And it needs to be given opportunity. Here's the idea here. Is this not just for your own learning? It's in the news a lot right now about, large companies that are laying off a lot of their employees and they're going to replace them with AI. And there's a lot of CEOs who think this is the smartest thing in the world to do. They're going to automate their entire workforce with AI. I predict they're going to end up hiring a lot of these folks back this same year because they're going to discover that AI is probably going to create more work than it actually solves. That's one of my predictions. And that it's going to require more management than what people fully appreciate right now. So I think we're going to have to hire a lot of these folks or somebody back to fill those positions. But here's the more important thing is that if you're going to build a company that has people at various skill levels from whatever the entry level position is in your company, could be flipping burgers at McDonald's, could be an engineer who just got out of school and is working towards their licensure, whatever the entry is for your role or your job, those people to become proficient at what they're doing, not just technically, but to eventually move into management or leadership roles, have to have somewhere where they're doing relatively standardized work, pretty simple work that other people can do easily, stuff that might be able to be outsourced to AI, but as a human being, they have to learn it themselves to get their reps in so that later in the future, they already have that capacity to be able to be successful in recognizing patterns and being able to make decisions and being able to be familiar with those contexts and know how to navigate them. And so if we take from an employee development pipeline, people coming in here and working their way through stages of professional growth over to wherever they're going, and if this first initial stage of bringing in people who have newer, fresher skills and they need to start learning a bunch, and we just cut this out, who do we replace that with? Where do we get those people? So you want to make sure that even if it feels less efficient, that you're not unintentionally sabotaging your future workforce, so your future leadership bench, your future technically proficient, skilled workers, whatever that is for your industry, that you're not robbing yourself of your future because you're not giving people because you don't want to invest in their on-ramp. Learning, growth, thinking has to be designed and given opportunity to develop. That's my second point. Investing in AI without a clear strategy is one of the fastest ways to just waste money and frustrate your team. That's why I've built practical guides and tools at christianmuntean.com. They're not about AI necessarily, but they're for owners who are running real businesses and not chasing trends. You'll find the link to that in the description. Now, if this video is helpful for you, please like the video and subscribe. Leave a comment. These signals help other owners and other leaders find the video. My third point is that tools should make things easier. I'm sure you have. I definitely have tried to adopt some new tool that everybody's using online for time management, for calendaring, for managing a project, for whatever new thing that's there. And I find that the learning curve is so steep and so high, and it's all so time consuming. Actually, one of my first virtual assistant that I ever hired, an amazing woman. She was fantastic. And I had been told by everybody, you need to use this particular customer CRM system. And plus it had other things tied to it in terms of managing websites and whatever fancy stuff that it did. I sat through so many workshops saying, you need to get this system, you need to get this system. That system, along with being expensive, required that we hire a coach to teach us how to use the system, which that was also expensive. And so I was having my VA learn how to use it. I completely fried her in the process and she quit. I lost an amazing, amazing helper on my team, at least in part because I burned her out because I thought we had to go in this direction. It turns out not only did I not need that tool, I didn't need anything remotely like it. My business is 10 times as large right now, and I don't have any tool even remotely like that, and I operate just as fine, better actually than I did then without it. Tools should make things easier for you. If they're not making things easier, get rid of it. It doesn't matter what the sales pitch is. People come out with tools all the time and they all promise to make your life better. You have to learn to evaluate, is this tool actually working? And be pretty quick at jettisoning it if it's not going to make things better for you. That's the third point. Here's the fourth point. You want to protect relationships and trust. My very first business was a coffee shop. This is back in the 90s when gourmet coffee was still kind of a new, edgy concept. Who would pay $1 for a cup of coffee? People would complain and then make fun of it. I would love to find a cup of coffee for $1 right now. Even yucky diner coffee that's been overbrewed for forever, that still costs like $3. But the interesting thing is back then, you'd make gourmet coffee, it was very hard to find good beans, quality beans, to know how to grind those beans, to get a grinder for it, to know how to make the coffee, to have a decent coffee maker in your house. It's very hard to do all of those things. So it wasn't easy to replicate quality coffee at home, so people would go to coffee shops to go get it. Now, you can easily get high-end coffee with high-end coffee makers that are super easy to use in the comfort of your own home. You do not need to go anywhere to get high quality coffee at a fraction of the price of what it would cost to get it at a coffee shop. Now, my office is over a coffee shop. And when I go down in there in the morning, there's always a line to get coffee. One of the things I learned back when I started my coffee shop a million years ago is that people come to coffee for relationships. There's a huge relational dynamic to coming in and getting a smile from a barista and someone who knows your name and is nice to you. And I can tell you it's kind of sad, but it's also very real that there are people coming through to get coffee because they're one pleasant interaction where somebody sees them, knows their name, does something nice for them, maybe seems kind of happy to see them, is at the coffee shop. And they actually are, I wouldn't say they live for it, but it is a motivator in their life to show up. And do they want the coffee? Yes. But what they really want is that momentary, very transactional exchange where another human sees them. And that means a lot. Additionally, a lot of coffee shops function as third spaces where people, it's not at work, it's not at home. A lot of communities, people aren't involved in different civic, organizations like churches or Elks or Moose Clubs or whatever. And so a lot of times people just don't have a place to just see or bump into other people. So they go to coffee shops. Here's the point for your business, your organization, is there are things about your business that really can only be done by people. And there's a value that is provided that can only happen in the context of relationships between actual human beings. And that creates trust between yourself and your customers or your vendors or whoever you're working with. Do not sacrifice that. And so even if you start adopting AI and it starts making some things easier and you're able to substitute it in for certain roles, make sure, protect the relational dynamic between your company and whoever it is you need to interact with. Because for many people, that relational dynamic is so important that even if it's a little bit more inefficient, a little more unpredictable, or whatever, they're willing to, like in the sense of the coffee shop where my office is over, they're willing to drive way out of their way to go get coffee someplace, get out of their car in the cold, walk into the building, wait in a line, all because there's a relational component that's there. That's a significant factor or driver into why people still do that. And so you need to look at your business. My encouragement to you, look at your business and figure out where is trust critical in our business? Where are relationships not just needed, but where are they still valued by others? And how do we make sure to keep protecting those? So AI is not going away. And it's going to change more than tools. It's going to change how leadership works. The leaders who win in this dynamic aren't necessarily going to be the fastest adopters. They'll be the clearest thinkers. So if you want to go deeper on how strong leaders scale without losing control, there's another video I recommend, and that's linked right here. So I encourage you to like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment if you felt like it was helpful for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Just remember, AI doesn't threaten leadership. Unexamined delegation of thinking does.